The strongest monster in the galaxy had killed 207 warriors without ever bleeding. Then a wounded human woman looked at it, smiled, and asked, "Do you want my weak side or my strong one?" The arena was a great bowl of black glass carved into the belly of our judgment station, and it was packed to the rafters with officers, magistrates, and assorted important persons who had nothing better to do that cycle than watch a small, soft creature get torn into ribbons. They had paid for good seats. They expected to get their money's worth, and quickly. Down on the floor of that bowl, alone, stood the human. She was, I must stress, not impressive. She came up to perhaps the shoulder of an average Vosk soldier. She had no armor, no weapon that anyone could see. Her covering was a torn gray uniform, stained at one sleeve with something dark and dried. Her head was tilted slightly, the way a creature tilts its head when it is thinking about something other than the very obvious problem of its own death. The crowd loved it. Oh, how they loved it. A little thing, all alone, against the Concorde's pride and joy. It was, they thought, going to be hilarious. And I will be honest with you, because that is my job, and I have never been good at the polite version of things. I thought so too. That, as it turned out, was the single greatest miscalculation of my long and reasonably distinguished career. So settle in. I am going to tell you exactly how wrong I was, and how wrong all of us were, and I am going to enjoy almost none of it. Her name was Della Hart. We knew that much because the humans, bless their stubborn little hearts, do this strange thing where they sew their names onto their clothing. A small white strip above the chest pocket, Art, D, as if it mattered. As if we were going to need it for the records. As if anyone in that arena expected to be writing a report longer than 2 lines. She had been taken 3 cycles earlier, during the boarding action against the human colony vessel Bright Mercy. And here is where I must explain something about my own people, because you cannot understand what happened next without understanding our magnificent, fatal arrogance. The Concorde had a theory about humans. We had studied them, you see, from a respectable distance the way one studies an unpleasant smell, and we had concluded with great scientific confidence that they were soft. Look at them, our experts said. Look how thin their hides are. Look how they bleed at the smallest cut. Look how they need water constantly, and warmth, and rest, and how they fall apart emotionally over the loss of a single member of their pack. A weak species, a sentimental species, a species that decorates its weapons and names its ships after feelings. The boarding of the Bright Mercy was supposed to prove the theory. Walk in, take what we wanted, and walk out. A simple operation. 41 Vosk Marines went into that ship. 9 came out. Nobody in the arena wanted to talk about that part. 9 out of 41, against a crew of farmers, technicians, and tired parents who had been trying to reach a quiet world to plant grain. The official report described it as, and I quote, "an unexpected level of resistance." I have always admired the courage of whoever wrote that line. Unexpected level of resistance. You could fit a great deal of dead Vosk into that phrase. Della Hart had been one of the last defenders. They found her cornered in an engine compartment with a broken pipe in her hands, and 4 of our soldiers down around her. She had not surrendered, she had simply run out of room to swing. So now she was here, on the black glass, as the main entertainment of the cycle. The magistrates had decided that a creature who killed 4 Marines deserved a special death, a theatrical one, something the troops could watch and feel good about. Up in the officers' gallery, the betting had already begun. I watched a fat colonel named Drovak lay down a stack of credit chits and announce, to general laughter, that the human would not last the length of 1 breath. A captain beside him took the bet and bravely raised the estimate to 2 breaths. 2 breaths. They were arguing over 2 breaths. I made a note in my record, because that is what historians do. We make notes. We did not, at that time, write down anything useful, such as run, or perhaps we should reconsider everything we believe. No, I wrote down the odds, and the colonel's name, and the temperature of the room. The temperature of the room, for what it is worth, was very warm. Comfortable. The kind of warmth you feel when you are certain, absolutely certain, that the bad thing is going to happen to somebody else. And then they opened the gate and let out the Razorback. Now, I have to do this thing justice, because the Razorback genuinely was a marvel. I am sarcastic about a great many things, but I will not be sarcastic about the engineering. It deserved better than that. The Concorde had built it. Not bred, not captured, built. It was a bioengineered apex predator, assembled from the worst pieces of 9 different worlds and stitched together by minds far crueler than mine. It stood 3 times the height of the human. Its hide was layered plate over corded muscle, the color of old bruises, and along its spine ran the rows of curved blades that gave it its name, each one long enough to open a marine's chest plate like soft fruit. It had 6 legs and moved like liquid poured downhill. Its head was mostly mouth. Behind that mouth sat 2 clusters of black eyes that did not blink, did not flinch, did not register anything but distance and meat. And here is the figure that mattered, the number every spectator in that bowl knew by heart. The Razorback had fought 207 times in that arena. It had won 207 times. Prisoners, traitors, captured enemy champions, a rogue magistrate, once an entire squad of mutineers all at once. The beast had taken them all apart and never once been made to bleed. There were songs about it, bad songs, mostly, the kind soldiers sing when they have had too much to drink and not enough sense, but songs all the same. So when it came onto the floor, low and silent and certain, the crowd rose to its feet and roared. This was their champion. This was the proof of everything the Concorde believed about itself. Superior, unbeaten, engineered to perfection. The beast did not roar back. That was not its way. It simply turned its dreadful head toward the small gray figure on the far side of the glass, and it began, slowly, to come forward. I want you to hold that image. The monster 207 kills behind it, gliding across black glass toward a woman who barely reached its knee. If you had asked me, in that moment, to bet, I would have bet with the Colonel. 1 breath, maybe 2, to be generous. I told you I was wrong. I am getting to exactly how wrong. The beast did not charge. That was the first interesting thing. A creature with that record does not need to charge, you understand. Charging is for the desperate, for the frightened, for the ones who know they have one chance and must take it. The Razorback had no such concerns. It had all the time in the world, and it had learned, across 207 encounters, that fear is itself a weapon. So it circled. It came in slow, wide, deliberate, its 6 legs placing themselves with horrible care, and it began to measure her. I have no better word for it. It was taking her dimensions, reading the length of her limbs, the set of her shoulders, the place where her neck met her body, calculating in whatever passed for its mind the exact most efficient way to end her, and Delahart led it. She did not back away, she did not raise her hands. She turned slowly on the spot, keeping her face toward it as it circled, and she watched it watch her. 2 predators, taking each other's measure. Except one of them weighed as much as a transport sled, and the other one weighed, I would estimate, about as much as a sack of grain. The arena had gone quiet again, the hungry quiet. They could all feel it coming. The beast stopped. It had finished measuring, its head lowered, the blades along its spine lifted, one by one, a slow ripple of edges catching the arena light. Every spectator in that bowl leaned forward as one body, and in that perfect, breathless, terrible silence, Delahart smiled. It was not a brave smile. I have seen brave smiles. The brave ones tremble at the corners. This one did not tremble at all. It was a slow, easy, almost lazy smile. The smile of someone who has just remembered a private joke at exactly the wrong funeral. Then she spoke. Her voice was not loud, but the arena was so silent that it carried all the way up to my deck, clear as struck crystal. She said, "All right, big fella." She rolled her shoulders the way humans do before some unpleasant labor, and then she said the words. The words I have repeated in lecture halls 100 times since. The words that are carved now into the side of the very memorial I helped commission. She tilted her head at the monster, and she asked it, sweet as anything, "Do you want my weak side or my strong?" I confess I did not understand it at first. None of us did. There was a ripple of confused noise through the crowd, a few barks of uncertain laughter from the gallery, where the colonel and his friends decided it must be some kind of primitive death prayer, a last babble before the end. They found it funny. They laughed. I did not laugh. I cannot tell you why. Something in the way she said it. There was no prayer in it. There was no fear in it. There was an offer in it. She was offering the beast a choice, the way a duelist offers a choice, the way someone in complete control of a situation offers their opponent the illusion that they have any say at all. The Razorback, of course, did not answer. It did not need her weak side or her strong. It needed only the half-second it took to cross the gap and close its mouth. So it took that half-second. It struck. The first clash was exactly as ugly as you would expect, and I am not going to dress it up. The beast came across the gap faster than anything that size has any right to move. A black wave of muscle and blades, and it hit where she had been standing. The sound was tremendous. A crack of impact that rolled around the glass bowl and came back doubled. But she was not there. Not quite. She had moved at the last possible instant, a short, hard sideways step, and the strike that should have folded her in half instead caught only the trailing edge of her uniform, tearing the sleeve clean away. She came out of the move already off balance, stumbling, and she went down hard onto one knee on the black glass. The crowd roared its approval. First blood would be soon. This was the part they had paid for, and to be fair to them, it looked exactly like the beginning of the end. She was down. She was unarmed. She was bleeding now. A thin line opened along her forearm where a spine had grazed her, and the Razorback was already turning, already coming back, already reading her position for the killing blow. She rolled, not gracefully. There was nothing of art in it. It was the desperate flat scramble of a small thing trying very hard not to be stepped on, and the beast's second strike cratered the glass exactly where her chest had been, sending splinters singing across the floor. Up came the colonel's voice, delighted. There it is. Pay me, you wretches. Pay me now. But the captain did not pay him. And I will tell you why the captain did not pay him. Because I was watching the captain's face, and the captain had noticed the same thing I had just begun to notice, and neither of us liked it. Delahart was not panicking. A creature that is about to die panics. Its movements become wild, frantic, wasteful. Every instinct screams and the body obeys the screaming. That is universal. I have watched it in 900 species. The condemned thrash. They flail. They burn themselves out in seconds and then they die exhausted. She was not doing that. Between each of the beast's strikes, in the fractions of a moment when she was clear, she was still, watching. Her eyes, those small, wet human eyes, were tracking the monster with a flat, working concentration. She was not running from the Razorback. She was reading it. Every time it struck, she moved just enough, and not a fraction more. She was spending nothing. She was learning the timing of its head, the reach of its blades, which of its 6 legs carried its weight on the turn and which trailed. She had taken 3 hits worth of near-death and converted every single one into data. I have seen many things in my long service. I had never, until that cycle, seen anything use its own near-death as a research instrument, and I felt, for the first time since they had opened the gate, a small, cold thread of doubt slide down through the warm, certain comfort of that room. The turn came on the 5th strike. The beast had fallen into a rhythm, you see. That was its great mistake, though it could not have known it, because in 207 fights nothing had ever lived long enough to make a rhythm matter. Strike, recover, reposition, strike. A clean, efficient cadence. The cadence of a machine that has never been challenged. Delahart had counted that cadence. And on the 5th strike, instead of moving away from the blow, she moved into it. It was the most frightening thing I have ever watched a small creature do on purpose. As the great head came down, she did not retreat. She stepped inside the arc of it, under the reach of the longest spines, into the one small pocket of space that the beast's own anatomy could not protect, and she brought her hand up. In that hand, which we had all assumed was empty, was a sliver of black glass. She had picked it up off the floor. During the rolling, during the desperate scrambling we had all laughed at, She had closed her bleeding fingers around one of the splinters the beast's own strikes had cut from the arena, and she had held it, and she had waited for the one moment it would matter. She drove it into the soft joint behind the beast's lower jaw, the one place on that whole armored horror where the plates did not meet, and she drove it into the depth of her own fist. The razorback screamed. I had not known it could make that sound. In 207 fights, it had never once needed to. The whole arena flinched as one. And from the wound, dark and steaming, came the thing none of those songs had ever mentioned. The thing the beast had never given. Blood. The crowd did not roar. The crowd made a low, confused, frightened murmur, the sound of 1,000 certainties all wobbling at once. The colonel's mouth was open and no laughter was coming out of it. And down on the glass, as the beast reeled and shook its ruined head, Della Hart stepped back out of its range, looked up at it almost kindly, and said, "Yeah, strong side then, good choice." That was when I understood the question. The weak side, the strong side. She had never been talking about her body. There was no weak side and strong side to a creature that small and that unarmed. The question had been a hook, a thing to make the monster pause, to make it certain, to make it commit fully to its own arrogant rhythm. She had used the beast's confidence as a tool, the same way she had used the broken glass. She had been arming herself with everything in that arena, including us, including the beast's own pride. From the moment the gate opened, the captain quietly slid the colonel's credit chits back across the rail and said nothing at all. Here is the part of the story where I am supposed to tell you the human won easily. She did not. I am a historian, not a singer of bad soldiers' songs, and I will not lie to you to make the shape of the tale more pleasing. The beast was hurt, but the beast was not finished, and a hurt apex predator is in many ways worse than a healthy one, because now it had a thing it had never possessed before. Now it had something to be angry about. It abandoned the rhythm. It abandoned all of it. The cold, efficient cadence that had ended 207 lives was gone, burned away in that scream, and what replaced it was raw and fast and chaotic. It came at her in a storm of blades, no longer measuring, no longer careful, just trying with everything in its engineered body to erase the small thing that had made it bleed. And it caught her. Of course it caught her. You cannot dance forever in a storm. One of the spines along its flank came across as it spun, and it took her across the side, and it threw her the full width of the arena floor. I heard the impact from my deck. It was the sound of a body that should not get up. She slid across the black glass and came to rest against the base of the wall, crumpled. Still, one arm bent under her at an angle that arms are not meant to make. A long dark smear followed her across the floor. The crowd let out its breath in a great rush of relief, because this, finally, this was the thing they understood. The small, soft creature broken against the wall, the natural order restored. The colonel reached again for his chits. The razorback gathered itself for the last charge. It lowered its bleeding head. The whole bowl held still, and Della Hart put one hand flat against the wall, and she pushed herself up. I want to be precise about this because precision is the only honest thing I have to offer. She did not leap up, healed and ready the way the heroes do in those human stories I have since made the mistake of reading. She got up the way a thing gets up when getting up is the single hardest act in the universe, and it has decided to perform that act anyway. Slowly, wrongly, one limb refusing to work, blood running freely down her side. She got up the way a wall would get up if you could somehow knock a wall down and it simply, stubbornly, refused to stay there. She spat something dark onto the glass. She looked at the beast, and she said, in a voice that was thinner now, but not one bit softer, "That all you got?" I did not understand the words at the time. I have had them translated since. That all you got. 4 small human syllables that meant, more or less, I have absorbed your very best effort, the effort that ended 207 lives, and I have decided that it was not enough, and now I am going to make you watch me decide that to your face. And this, my own people, this is the thing I most need you to understand. The thing the experts with their soft species theory never once put in a report. It is not that humans are strong. They are not particularly. The colonel could have snapped her spine across his knee. It is not that they do not feel pain. She felt every bit of it. I watched her feel it. It is that they do not accept the conclusion. The beast had presented her, very clearly, with an argument. The argument was death, and it was a good argument, backed by 207 prior proofs. And Della Hart had listened to the entire argument, and she had simply declined to agree with it. She had looked at the obvious, settled, scientific fact of her own ending, and she had said, with her broken arm and her open side and her one working hand, "No, I don't think so. Not today, not to you. There is no defense against that. We had built armor against blades and shields, against energy, and our beautiful theory against soft, sentimental creatures. We had never thought to build a defense against spite, against the flat refusal to lie down when every law of the universe insists you must. Because here is the cruel arithmetic of it. A creature that will not stop only has to win once. You have to win every single time. And no one, nothing, not even a thing with 207 kills carved into the songs, wins every single time forever." The beast charged. She was waiting for it. The Razorback, in its rage, in its new and unfamiliar pain, made the one error its cold, careful self would never have made. It led with its wounded head, the head she had already opened, the head that hurt, because hurting things lead with the part that hurts. It came low and fast and furious, jaws wide, straight at her, and Della Hart, who could barely stand, who had one working arm and a body that the rest of the room had already written off, did the simplest thing in the world. She did not move away. She had no move left in her. Instead, she dropped, at the last instant, flat to the glass beneath the oncoming jaws, and as the whole vast weight of the beast passed over her, she reached up with her one good hand, and took hold of the broken glass sliver that was still buried in its jaw, the one she had left there, the handle she had been planning for since the fifth strike, and she let the beast's own charge do the work. Its momentum dragged the blade through the soft wound, the whole length of the joint, opening the unarmored seam from jaw to throat as it passed over her. It was not her strength that did it. It never had been. It was the monster's own 207 kills of confident, furious speed, turned by one small, clever creature into the instrument of its ending. The beast's own charge cut its own throat. It made it perhaps 4 more strides. Then its forelegs folded, and the great body came down, and it slid, the way she had slid, across the black glass, and it came to rest, and the blades along its spine lowered, one by one. For the last time, the arena was completely silent. Not the hungry silence now. Not the relieved silence. A new silence. The silence of 1,000 certainties all dead at once on the floor of a glass bowl. The silence of a great many important persons realizing, at exactly the same moment, that everything they had believed about the soft, sentimental species was a comfortable lie, and that the lie had just bled out in front of them. Della Hart got up. Again. Of course she did. By now I would have been astonished by anything else. She walked, slowly, badly, holding her broken arm against her side, across the floor to the body of the Razorback. The thing that had never lost, the Concord's pride. She stood over it, and she put one foot, almost gently, on the side of its enormous ruined head, the way a hunter stands over a thing it has taken, not in triumph exactly, but in a kind of tired acknowledgement. Then she lifted her head, and she looked up, all the way up, past the lower tiers, past the magistrates, past the gallery where the colonel sat with his unclaimed chits and his open mouth, and she looked, I swear it, directly at the place where the most powerful persons of the Concord were sitting. And she said one more thing. The last thing. The thing they did not put on the memorial because they could not agree on whether it was a promise or a threat, and in the end decided, correctly, that it was both. She said, "There's about 11 billion more of us where I came from." She let that sit. She let it travel all the way up into that terrible silence and settle over every single person in the room. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, almost kindly, "You should think real careful about your weak side and your strong." Nobody in the arena moved. I have served the Concord all my life. I have watched magistrates condemn whole worlds without their voices wavering. I have never, before or since, seen 10,000 confident beings sit in such complete and helpless stillness, unable to cheer, unable to jeer, unable to do anything at all except sit in the wreckage of a belief they had not known was load-bearing until it gave way beneath them. The magistrates did not order her killed. I have thought a long time about why. I believe it was because killing her now would have meant admitting that the contest had been fair, and that she had won it, and the only thing more frightening to a Concord magistrate than a victorious human is the public knowledge that a human can be victorious. So instead they did the thing powerful frightened persons always do. They called it irregular. They cleared the arena. They confiscated the recordings, all but the ones that a certain observer historian had quietly made his own copy of, because that too is my job, and I have never been good at the obedient version of it. They returned Della Hart to a cell, and 4 cycles later, when the human fleet came for the Bright Mercy survivors, she walked out under her own power, broken arm in a sling she had made from her own torn sleeve, the strip with her name still sewn above the pocket, Hart, D. She did not look back at the arena. Why would she? To her it had been a small interruption, a bad afternoon. To us it was the end of an age, and she did not even turn her head. So now I come to the part where the historian is supposed to draw the lesson and tell his own people what it all means. And I am going to do exactly that, and I am going to do it without the comfortable lies, because I have given up entirely on comfortable lies. They get Marines killed 41 at a time. Here is the lesson, my people. Hear it carefully, because the songs will get it wrong, the way songs always do, and the experts will write reports that fold the truth up small enough to forget. We thought they were soft. We were right. They are soft. Their hides tear, their bones break, they bleed at a touch, and they grieve their dead, and they decorate their weapons with feelings. Every single thing in our beautiful theory was true. We simply drew the wrong conclusion from it. We thought soft meant weak. We thought a creature that breaks easily would also break finally. And we were wrong about that one thing, that single thing, and it is the only thing that ever mattered. Because the human does not break the way other species break. Strike a Vosk hard enough, and he submits. Strike most species hard enough, and they yield. And the yielding is mercy, for it ends the contest. Strike a human hard enough, and she will look at the place where the strike landed, and she will measure it, and she will learn from it, and she will get up, and she will ask you, with a smile that does not tremble, whether you would like to try your strong side this time, because she has already survived your weak one. They do not need to be stronger than the beast. They only need to refuse to agree that they have lost, for one breath longer than the beast can stand, and they always have that one breath. It is the one thing they never run out of. There are, as she so kindly informed us, about 11 billion more of them. I am an old observer now, near the end of my service, and I have no army, and no fleet, and no power to change the course we are on. All I have is this record, and this warning, and the small cold thread of doubt that slid into me on that warm certain afternoon and never once left. So I will give the warning plainly, and then I will put down my pen. When you meet them, and you will meet them, do not measure them up. Do not circle, and read their limbs, and calculate the most efficient way to end them, the way the beast did, with all its perfect engineering and its 207 songs. The beast measured her up, and it was the last thing it ever did correctly. She smiled, and she asked it which side it wanted. And the truly terrible thing, the thing that keeps an old historian awake in the warm dark of his quarters, is that she was not being cruel when she asked it. She was not even being brave. She was being fair. She was giving the monster a choice. That is what we are up against. Not a stronger beast. A smaller, softer, breakable creature that will give you every advantage, name them out loud for you, smile while she does it, and beat you anyway, with your own pride for a handle and your own charge for a blade. Think real careful, she said, about your weak side and your strong. I have thought about it, Della Hart. I have thought about almost nothing else. We do not have a strong side. We never did. We only had a beast, and a theory, and a very warm and comfortable room, and you walked into all three of them with a piece of broken glass and walked back out with your name still sewn above your pocket. So here is my record. For whoever comes after me, in whatever silence is left, they are soft. Do not, under any circumstances, mistake that for weak. That is the whole of the lesson. That is the entire history. Everything else is just the songs getting it wrong. End of record.